The village where I lived caught fire. By the time I rushed from the construction site to the hospital after receiving the call, my daughter had already been taken into the ICU for emergency treatment.
Aura had come with the ambulance. When I arrived, she was sitting on the ground, curled up, her face full of fear and helplessness. Her face was streaked with tears, and her cheeks were swollen.
Laura had an accident on the construction site years ago. I spent all our savings to save her, but she became mentally impaired. Our daughter usually took care of her, and now that something had happened to our daughter, she must be terrified. Thinking of this, I hurried towards her.
Why did you come so late?
Suddenly, I felt two heavy slaps on my back, followed by someone rudely questioning me.
Who are you to this idiot?
I shielded Laura behind me and stared at him in shock.
We are filming in the adjacent ward, and Laura's crying is affecting the actor's performance, so I came out to drive her away.
Emma hasn't come out yet. I won't leave.
You're still crying? An idiot should stay at home, not come to the hospital and disrupt our work. Hurry up and compensate our crew for the losses.
Losses? I reached out to touch Laura's cheek, and she flinched in pain. Suppressing my anger, I spoke.
You hit my wife, and you still want us to compensate for the losses?
Your wife is an idiot. Instead of keeping her locked up at home, she came here crying and delayed our filming. Why shouldn't you compensate for the losses? She didn't listen, so I taught her a lesson with a couple of slaps. What's wrong with that?
You.
I was at a loss for words, but thinking of my daughter still in surgery, I decided to ignore him. At that moment, the ICU emergency room door opened, and a young nurse approached me.
Are you Emma's family?
How is my daughter?
Your wife can't sign the papers in her condition. If you had been any later, the patient wouldn't have needed emergency treatment. Hurry up and sign.
I apologized profusely and reached out to take the documents. To my surprise, John snatched the documents away.
Sign what? No compensation, no signing.
What are you doing? The patient's family needs to sign the papers. If you delay, can you take responsibility?
Don't give me that nonsense. It's not my daughter waiting for emergency treatment.
John glared at the nurse and turned to me.
No money, no signing.
You.
I raised my hand, ready to fight him, but Laura grabbed my arm, shaking her head in panic.
No, don't hit him. Emma said not to hit people.
Hearing Laura mention our daughter, my heart ached, and I lowered my hand.
Ha, idiot. You're worse than an idiot.
How much do you want?
3,000. Not a penny less.
3,000? I barely earn 3,000 a month working at the construction site.
What? Is your daughter's life not worth 3,000?
Please, my husband works hard for his money, please.
Despite her mental state, Laura cared deeply for me and our daughter. Hearing him demand 3,000, she collapsed to the ground, hugging John's leg and begging.
Disgusting. Get lost. Are you paying or not? If not, I'll tear up this paper.
John waved the documents dismissively, his tone harsh.
What? Is your daughter's life not worth 3,000?
Laura, despite her mental state, was deeply concerned for our daughter. She collapsed to the ground, hugging John's leg and begging.
Please, my husband works hard for his money, please.
Disgusting. Get lost.
He turned to me, his expression cold.
Are you paying or not? If not, I'll tear up this paper.
I hurriedly tried to stop him while reaching into my pocket.
Wait. I'll pay.
Because of my daughter's accident, I had just gotten an advance on my wages from the construction site. But no matter how many times I checked, I was still short by a few dozen.
This will teach you a lesson. Don't cry again. If you disrupt our filming again, it won't be this simple.
John snatched the money and threw the document in my face before striding off to the next room. John looked at the newcomer and quickly spoke.
Boss.
I've told you many times, call me director, not boss. People might think we're some kind of gang.
Director, this annoying laborer is causing trouble here.
Didn't you explain the situation to the public?
I was just about to.
He then solemnly informed us about a major celebrity filming today, a female internet star with millions of followers, whose appearance fee was $100,000 a day.
You were wailing here, delaying Ms. Lee's performance. The crew's loss must be compensated by you today.
Hearing this word, I couldn't suppress my anger.
I'll wail for your mother.
I clenched my fist and punched him hard in the face. John staggered back, hit the wall, and slid to the ground, clutching his face and groaning.
This is the ICU. The patient is still being resuscitated. Can't you keep it down?
Young lady, that's not how you should talk. We paid to rent your place for filming. You should cooperate with us to clear the area. Why are these random people here?
The patient needs a blood transfusion, but her blood type is rare. Family members, come with me to get tested.
She headed towards the stairs, and as Laura and I were about to follow, the director and two strong men blocked our way.
Pay up, or neither of you is going anywhere.
My daughter urgently needs a blood transfusion. Please don't make it difficult for us. Can we discuss this after we come back?
It's not my daughter who's in danger. If you run away, where will I get the money?
Are you out of your mind? If you have a problem, go to the 6th floor. They're already pitiful enough. Their daughter is in the emergency room waiting for a blood transfusion. Stop causing trouble here.
Young lady, I advise you not to play the saint. Just because he's poor and pitiful doesn't mean he's right. We've been working hard here filming. Did we complain?
Right, pitiful people must have something detestable about them. If they hadn't done something wrong, why would their daughter need resuscitation?
Don't go too far. If anything happens to my daughter, I'll make sure you all pay for it.
Emma, save Emma.
She was right, our daughter was waiting for us to donate blood. We couldn't delay any longer.
How much do you need? I'll go to the bank and get it for you.
You're straightforward, my friend. Let's make it half price, 50,000.
The director looked at me disdainfully, then gave John a look.
We brought a POS machine. You can swipe your card directly.
What 50,000? Why so much? I need this money to save my daughter's life.
The director snorted.
Can't bear to part with the money, huh? Then we'll just wait here.
5,000, save Emma.
I was trembling with anger and took out a bank card from my pocket. This was the life-saving money the manager lent me before I left the construction site.
Boss, the 5,000 has arrived.
I quickly spoke up.
The money's there. Can we go now?
Let's be clear, we need to swipe another 2,000 right in front of you.
I was stunned by his words.
The 5,000 just now was to compensate for the crew's losses, but you hit my man. Do you think you can get away with that? Don't mind them, John, keep swiping.
John, following orders, happily operated the machine, but soon his face darkened.
This card can't even swipe 2,000, it seems to be out of money.
You've taken the money, and you've caused enough trouble. Let them go with me now.
The director threw the bank card at my face.
Poor fool, how dare you come to the hospital without money?
Sir, please show mercy. My daughter doesn't have much time left. Can we go and donate blood first?
Sure. No money, no problem. Just kneel and kowtow to my subordinate, and we'll call it a day.
My fists clenched tightly.
It's pointless for poor people to live. It's better to be free from suffering.
Will you kneel? If you don't, your daughter might not make it.
I'll kneel.
I gritted my teeth and knelt down, kowtowing twice to John. As I knelt, they burst into laughter.
Boss, you're really something.
Learn from this. These are life experiences. For such brainless troublemakers, you have to use extreme measures.
After kowtowing, I got up and tried to pull Laura away, but the two strong men blocking the way didn't seem to have any intention of letting us pass.
I kowtowed. Why won't you let us go?
Oh, my memory. I forgot to charge you for the crew's lost work time. Let's say 3,000 per person per day. There are 7 of us here, so transfer another 20,000, and I'll let you go.
We have no more money. Please, save Emma, save Emma.
Don't kneel, or people will say I bully the mentally challenged. How about this? If you don't have money, write me an IOU. Didn't you say you were borrowing money tomorrow? Just repay us the 20,000 then.
Hearing this, Laura seemed struck by lightning. In her anxiety, she collapsed to the ground, unconscious. I looked at Laura on the ground, then at the ICU door, trembling and muttering.
All right.
At that moment, the ICU door opened, and the emergency light went off. A gray-haired male doctor came out.
Is Emma's family here?
I quickly dropped the paper and pen in my hand and ran over to ask.
Doctor, how is my daughter?
I'm sorry, we did our best. The time you lost was too long. The patient's infection led to multiple organ failures. She doesn't have much time left. She said she wants to see her parents one last time. You can go in and see her now.
At that moment, I felt like the sky had fallen. It was my fault for not being able to save my daughter.
What were you doing just now? Why is there another person fainted here?
Director, these people were blocking the patient's family, not letting them go for a medical test.
I warned you not to talk nonsense. If you keep talking, I'll sue you for slander. These 2 poor people have been crying here, delaying our filming. We were just following the hospital leader's instructions. We didn't do anything.
Who said you can't cry at the ICU door? Who allowed you to film in the hospital?
Director, they are friends of the hospital leaders.
I don't care about connections. Get them to pack up and leave. If any leader has a problem, let them come to me.
With that, he stormed off.
Director, we just have a few more shots. Give us some time, we'll leave as soon as we're done.
I woke Laura up and explained our daughter's situation to her. She couldn't accept it and cried even harder. I knew she felt the same as me. Our life's hope was gone.
What bad luck to run into you today.
He spat at us.
My mouth really is blessed. I said their daughter would pass away, and she really did.
They burst into laughter again.
You're really something. Their daughter is dying, and you can still laugh.
It's all thanks to your good teaching, boss. You have to use extreme measures with people like them.
Director, why don't I start a live stream? Let my millions of followers see the hardships of life. Maybe we'll get a lot of gifts.
I ignored them and hugged Laura tightly, crying together. After today, we would no longer have our daughter. The ICU door opened again, and the medical staff came out, telling us to talk to our daughter for a while. They would come back later. We went in, and the sight of our daughter covered in tubes and wires, her skin charred from the fire, greeted us. When she saw us, she forced a small smile.
I knew that smile must hurt, but I couldn't do anything for her.
Dad. Dad.
She gently touched her mother's cheek with one hand and slowly raised the other to her head. I knew what my daughter wanted. It was a game we often played together. I always wore my work gloves and saluted her, a gesture from my days in the military.
Daddy, you have contributed so much to the city's construction. When I grow up, I want to be a police officer to catch the bad guys and protect you.
I took out the dirty gloves from my pocket and gave her a proper salute. Seeing me salute, her lips moved slightly. I knew she was smiling again, and I could no longer hold back the tears in my eyes. As the machine on the table emitted a long beep, the wavy lines on the screen turned into a straight horizontal line. At that moment, Laura and I lost our daughter, our most beloved daughter. She was gone, not even reaching her 12th birthday, just 3 more days, if only 3 more days. Laura and I held our daughter's hand, crying out loud, hoping the heavens wouldn't be so cruel, hoping for more time for our daughter. But it was impossible, our daughter left us forever at that moment. I gently closed her eyes, which hadn't shut even in her final moments, and my tears fell onto her soot-stained face.
Crying, crying, crying. Is it never ending? Finish crying and come over to write the IOU.
As Laura and I grieved for our lost daughter, John came again, urging me to complete the unfinished business.
Hurry up, don't think about sneaking away.
John grumbled impatiently and then closed the door. I kissed my daughter's forehead, glanced at Laura, who was still holding our daughter's hand in agony, picked up the scissors left on the table after the surgery, hid them in my sleeve, and walked out of the ICU. Yes, I still had some unfinished business. If I became a person who didn't keep my word, my daughter wouldn't be happy seeing it from above. I gently pushed open the door to the next room, where John was vividly reenacting the scene he had just witnessed.
Boss, isn't it funny? It made me laugh so hard. Look, I even have tears.
The director leaned forward to look, and indeed there were tears, but they weren't clear, they were blood red. Looking closer, the once clear eyes turned crimson in an instant. Maybe I acted too quickly. John didn't feel any pain before he was gone. But it scared the director speechless because the scissors were now lodged in John's temple. I whispered.
Laughing to death is good. At least there's no pain.
The director finally came to his senses, falling off his chair in fright, crawling and curling up in the corner. Seeing me still standing there, the scissors now far from me, he mustered the courage to shout.
What are you two waiting for? He has no weapon. Go restrain him.
The 2 burly men, who had blocked my way earlier, snapped out of their shock at the director's command. One of them ran towards me and knocked me to the ground, while the other grabbed my neck and lifted me up.
Do you know who our boss is? Someone like you can't afford to mess with him.
Instinctively, I reached into my pocket and slowly pulled out a screwdriver. To prevent him from blocking, I raised my other hand as if to hit his head. Sure enough, he used his other hand to block my punch. That was my chance. I thrust the screwdriver into his neck. Blood gushed from his carotid artery. He looked at me in disbelief, clutching his neck as he fell backward. The other man stood frozen, too scared to move.
What are you waiting for? He's alone. Get him together. Hold him down. I'll call the police and let him face the consequences.
The other man regained his resolve and charged at me again. I threw the screwdriver, hitting the director's hand as he tried to dial the police. At the same time, I grabbed a nearby chair and swung it hard. The chair hit his head perfectly, and he fell to the ground with a groan. I looked at him coldly.
Didn't I say if anything happened to my daughter, you'd pay for it? Since you're in such a hurry, I'll send you on your way.
The man shook his head, trying to clear it. But I wouldn't give him another chance. I swung the chair at his head. Once. Twice. 3 times. I lost count of how many times I hit him until the chair's wooden surface and metal frame separated, and I finally stopped. Covered in blood, my dirty work clothes were even filthier. I took a few deep breaths to calm my raging emotions, then turned to the director.
Don't come any closer. You'll face severe consequences for this.
My daughter is gone. Do I look like I care about consequences?
Look, you're still young. You can have another child. Besides, most of the people who troubled you are gone. Can't you let us go?
His plea was laughable. Had he ever shown us mercy?
Were you eager to see suffering? Is this enough for you?
It was her. She wanted to live stream for views. It has nothing to do with me.
The director pointed at Emily, who was already collapsed on the ground, crying. I turned slightly to look at Emily. She glanced at me, then seemed to remember something. She immediately crawled towards a nearby handbag, rummaging through it to find her phone. She looked at me.
Surrender now, or I'll go live and expose your misdeeds to my million followers. They won't let your family live in peace after seeing this.
I hadn't wanted to argue with her, but her words reignited my anger. Yes, I've taken so many lives, there's no way I can survive this. I can leave this world, just to be with my daughter. But my wife and family back home are still here, I can't let them suffer because of me. Yes, I must fight one more time for my family. With that thought, I lunged forward, kicking the phone out of Emily's hand and then swung the iron chair leg at her head. A man and a woman by the window had opened it to escape but were hesitant because they were on the 5th floor, fearing the fall. But seeing the brutal scene of me hitting Emily, their fear overwhelmed them, and they jumped out the window one after the other. They probably thought they had a better chance of surviving the fall than staying here. Watching their actions, I was stunned. I didn't actually want to hurt them, after all, they had only mocked us for being poor. My actions gradually slowed, and I panted heavily. When I instinctively turned to look at the director, I saw him sneaking towards me, only 3 or 4 meters away, holding the screwdriver he had used earlier. I smirked, realizing he was trying to attack me by surprise. When our eyes met, he knew he couldn't harm me, so he turned and fled, the locked door not stopping his will to survive. I got up and chased after him, seeing him frantically pressing the elevator button, but the elevator was stuck on the 1st floor. All creatures have a survival instinct, especially someone as high up as the director. He knew he had to escape to a crowded place to be safe. But I wasn't going to let him go, I had to fulfill my promise today. Seeing me chase him, he abandoned the elevator and ran down the stairs. Perhaps fate was at play, as the elevator arrived just as he entered the stairwell. I didn't chase him but took the elevator, planning to wait for him in the lobby.
Wait.
As the elevator doors closed, Laura squeezed in, holding something in her hand. I didn't pay attention, quickly pressing the button for the 1st floor and the close door button. The elevator descended quickly, and I removed my gloves, finding them too sticky. As soon as the elevator doors opened, I ran towards the hospital entrance, catching up to the director and cornering him in the lobby. He looked disheveled from the chase, his tinted glasses lost somewhere along the way.
Don't push me, or I'll harm you.
Soon, a crowd gathered around us, pointing and whispering. Maybe the director's aura was too strong, or maybe my clothes were too dirty, but their whispers didn't concern me. I stared at the director.
Aren't you good at preaching? Can you answer one question?
The director didn't expect me to ask a question instead of pressing him. His mouth twitched, and he stammered.
What? You're asking me a question now? Are you out of your mind?
Do you believe that bad people can change for the better?
The director, hearing my question, thought I was going to let him go. He immediately dropped the screwdriver and knelt before me.
Brother, so many people are watching now, please let me go, okay? Think about your wife, you still have a child to lay to rest. I'll burn incense for your daughter every day, just let me go, please.
How laughable. How ironic. Why didn't he think of letting us go earlier? If he or that sneering John had shown a bit of mercy, I wouldn't have lost the chance to save my daughter. I had to fulfill my promise, I had to make these villains accompany my daughter. Just then, someone called the police, and the sound of sirens echoed outside the hospital. Police officers began appearing at the entrance. The director collapsed to the ground, exhaling heavily as if celebrating his escape. I closed my eyes, awaiting the impending judgment. Yes, I gave up. I no longer had the strength to take down the scum in front of me with my bare hands.
Too late, the police are here, I'm saved. When I get out, I'll make sure you suffer. When you're gone, I'll slowly torment your wife, just you wait.
He choked on his words. I opened my eyes to see him sitting there, eyes wide, clutching his throat and groaning. Behind him stood a woman. It was Laura, wearing the gloves I had discarded, holding a utility knife, blood still dripping from the blade. Soon, the police rushed into the hall, dispersing the crowd and pinning us to the ground. I didn't resist, nor did I feel any fear. On the contrary, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Perhaps this was liberation? Soon, I would see my daughter again, and our family would be reunited. The villains lay dead before me, and I no longer had to worry about Laura being retaliated against. Maybe this was the perfect ending. 3 years later, I drove towards the mental hospital on the outskirts of the city. Today was Laura's last day of treatment. The events at the hospital 3 years ago had concluded. After the police took us away, they conducted a thorough investigation. The fifth-floor surveillance was broken, and no medical staff were present at the time. However, doctors and nurses later testified that the crew had been bullying us. When I sought revenge, I wore gloves, and only the director's fingerprints were found on the screwdriver. Many witnesses in the lobby saw him brandishing the screwdriver and threatening to kill me. For some reason, Laura, usually mentally impaired, took all the blame, recounting my experiences as if they were hers to the judge. The forensic examination confirmed that Laura had severe mental illness, completely losing the ability to recognize or control her actions. She was sentenced to 3 years of confinement. Thanks to our defense lawyers' relentless efforts, the sentence was changed to 3 years of mandatory treatment outside of prison. Our home in the urban village was expedited for demolition due to a fire, and we received nearly $2 million in compensation. When I arrived at the mental hospital, it was noon. Laura was already waiting at the entrance, a ray of sunlight illuminating her face. She saw me and smiled warmly.